I was born in 1999, and I kind of really started watching baseball around like 2006, 2007. That's when I really started paying attention. So I missed the peak of Ichiro and Ken Griffey Jr. and some of Albert Pujols. I've seen Mike Trout. Mike Trout is the best all around baseball player I've seen. But the most consistent hitter I've ever seen in my life is Jose Altuve, and I will vouch for this dude. I mean, I know they cheated, they got caught cheating, but I think this dude is an AL MVP away from already being goated as an all time baseball player in my book. How you doing? It is July 17th, 2020. I here in this quarantine. I'm James Simpson for this episode of The Elite. I was going to do a profile on Jose Altuve, the second baseman for the Houston Astros, who was basically signed and brought up through the system. He made his debut for the Houston Astros in 2011. His very first season, he was 21. He ended up playing 57 games, 61 hits in those games. Nothing too special, but he still had more hits than games, which is something that I like. And of course that season, that was when the Astros were at their complete worst. They were sixth in the NL Central. That's how bad they were. They had 106 losses on the season. That was when the NL Central had six teams. So moving on to 2012, his second year in the league, he played 147 games, finished with 167 hits, 34 doubles, 7 home runs, 37 RBIs, and the like. But he was named an All-Star in his second year in the league at 22 years old with a 290 batting average and a 340 on base percentage at 22. But at the same time, that this is the Astros are still really really bad. But this Jose Altuve would be one of the initial prospects that would come up through the system that would help them become the championship contender that they built themselves to be. And in 2013, his age 23 season, he ended up with 177 hits in 152 games, 31 doubles. He finished with 35 stolen bases, and he finished with like a 283 batting average. He wasn't recognized as an all-star, but for the third season he was in the league, he had more hits than games, and it was starting to show. It was starting to be more of a consistent trend, and he was already an all-star. And that year, the Astros finished last in the AL West. That was their first season in the AL. But that's when a lot of their other younger players started to come up in the system. So they were starting to slowly get better and better. In 2014, his age 24 season, he would go on to earn his second All-Star game, or he would make a second All-Star game. While playing in 158 games, he led the league in hits with 225 hits, the most hits he's ever had in a season, which if you consider it, I don't know if many other players in MLB history ever posted 225 hits in a 162 game season. He finished with 56 stolen bases, leading the American League, along with 7 home runs, 59 RBIs, but he still had 225 hits. He finished the league leading with a 341 batting average. That's the second highest batting average he's ever had in his career. 377 OBP. He was named a Silver Slugger for the first time in his career, 13th in MVP voting. But the Astros were still fourth in the AL West with a 70-92 record. They were still not a playoff team. He wasn't really recognized because the Houston Astros they weren't on the national stage yet. But Jose Altuve having 225 hits in a season, as that already solidified him in the elite conversation already. And that was his first elite season, right? In 2015, his age 25 season, he played 154 games. He finished with 200 hits that season, leading the American League. His second straight 200 hit season. He would go on to lead the American League in stolen bases for the second year in a row, this time with 38. He led the league and he was caught stolen the most amount of times too. He still finished with a 313 batting average. He was an all-star for the third time in his career in his fifth season. He was a gold glove second baseman for the first time. He was a silver slugger for the second time, and he was voted 10th in the MVP voting. And that year, the Astros would go on to finish second in the AL West, where they would beat the Yankees in the wild card, and they would lose to the Royals in the ALDS the year the Royals won. That was the year that Keuchel won the Cy Young and Carlos Correa came on the team, and that's when they became a true contender. Once they had a couple pitchers in there, in there, a couple pitchers and a couple hitters in there, got some depth. But yeah, of course, the Astros were starting to build themselves up as an up and coming team, and Jose Altuve was most definitely leading the way, especially from the batter's box. in his age, or I'm sorry, in his age 26 season in 2016. He played 161 games for the Houston Astros, finishing with 216 total hits in those seasons. That's three straight 200 hit seasons by then. And of course, another 30 steal season. He didn't lead the league, but he led the league in batting average for the second time in his career. That's his second batting title. And I don't know if you guys are aware, but winning a batting title is incredibly difficult considering how many baseball players go up to bat in like the American League and the National League. He won the batting title more than once, so it wasn't a fluke, showing that this dude is an elite baseball player after all. That season he finished with his fourth All-Star, his third consecutive All-Star, his third straight Silver Slugger, and he finished third in the MVP voting. And the Astros that year would go on to finish third in the AL West. They didn't even make the playoffs, but at this point, Altuve was already a perennial all-star, being recognized as the best hitting, definitely as the most consistent contact hitter in the American League. 'Cause of course, Mike Trout was the better all-around hitter. Otherwise, he wouldn't be the MVP or the runner-up every year he's been in the league. But his age 27 season in 2017 for the Houston Astros, he played 153 games. He finished with 204 hits, leading the American League for the fourth straight time with 200 hits. That's a feat. I don't know if I'm gonna see that again in my lifetime. He led the American League in hits 4 years in a row, and he had 200 hits all four of those seasons. He finished with 39 doubles, 24 home runs, 81 RBIs. He finished with a 346 batting average. That is the highest in his career, and I don't even understand. Like, that's incredibly ridiculous. He had an OPS of 410 every four times he approached the plate. And it wasn't at bat. Like he'd be on base 4/10 of the time. He finished with his fourth consecutive All-Star, his fifth total, his fifth in 6 years. He was named a Silver Slugger for the fourth year in a row, and he was officially named the MVP of the American League. And when they made it to the playoffs, they eventually beat the Dodgers in the World Series after beating the Red Sox in 4 and beating the Yankees in 7 in the ALCS. At that point, that was Jose Altuve's MVP championship year. In addition to what he's been doing, and that was the fourth year of his. That was the fourth year straight of him hitting having 200 hits in a 160 game season. How many games he's playing in the year? I don't even know if you understand. Like, there are players now that are having consistent 200 hit seasons. Altuve, for the last couple of seasons, he hasn't been able to do it. But ever since then, at that point, by the time he's 28, he already has 4 batting titles, 2 stolen base titles, or 3 batting titles, 4 200 hit seasons in a row. You have an MVP under your belt, and you have a championship with an impressive run to get them there. And of course, with the whole cheating scandal, a lot of that's going to come back on them. But I mean, for now, that's still an amazing title run, and Jose Altuve still had one hell of a year. Not much more I can really say to that. The next year in 2018, he would go on to play 137 games in Houston, finishing with 169 hits in those games, 29 doubles, 13 home runs, 61 RBIs, 316 batting average. He would go on to clinch his 5th straight All-Star, his 6th in 7 years, his 5th straight Silver Slugger. He'd be 13th in the MVP voting. The Astros would finish up with 103 wins in the season, where they would sweep the Indians and lose to the Red Sox in 5. But by then, of course, Jose Altuve had asserted himself, and he was recognized by all as the best second baseman in baseball, and he held that title he holds that title pretty and strongly. He definitely holds that case. And even going into this last season, he played 124 games for the Houston Astros that went to the World Series this past year. He finished with 149 hits in those games. He finished with 31 home runs, the most in his career in a 124-game season, by the way. He finished with 74 RBIs and a 298 batting average, the first time his batting average was under 300 since 2013. And I mean, I don't know, he was coming off of injury, he was coming back. And the Astros, of course, that year would go on to finish with 107 wins on the season. But they would eventually lose to the Nationals in 7 in the World Series after beating the Rays and the Yankees, with Justin Verlander winning his Cy Young and Yordan Alvarez winning Rookie of the Year for Houston. So, I mean, If you look at Jose Altuve right now, I see a an elite hitting and defensive second baseman who already who has a Gold Glove under his belt, who has multiple Silver Sluggers, in a really talented Houston Astros team who just came off of a 107 win season last year, and they just lost Garrett Cole. They're gonna take a step back, but they're still one of the more dominant teams in baseball. They're still one of the most feared. Jose Altuve is one of those reasons. I think you give him a chance to play this half season. I think he's gonna lead the league in hits if he gets to play the full season, if he's fully healthy, if they don't completely beam him, of course, because he is on the Houston Astros. I have no idea of how this season's gonna go, but I like their situation. He has Yuli Gurriel, Alex Bregman, and Carlos Correa in his infield. Jordan Alvarez is the designated hitter. They have Michael Brantley, George Springer, Josh Reddick in the outfield. They have Verlander, Greinke in their starting pitching lineup, and Roberto Ozuna is their closer. No, the Houston Astros are definitely built to win this year. If you're gonna ask me for right now, is Jose Altuve elite, and would you watch him play next year? Of course, I'm gonna watch him play next year because he's gonna make the playoffs. The Astros are incredibly dominant, and Verlander is most definitely one of the reasons, but Altuve is definitely there too. For me, the 200 win seasons definitely should goat him for me, but with the whole World Series situation, I have no idea how that's gonna pan out, and I kind of want to see him win another MVP. To me, if he wins a second MVP, then if he wins a second MVP or a second championship, then everything from the first one falls apart. He's still a GOAT. He'll be an all-time great. When I look back and I remember Jose Altuve, I'm going to look back and remember him as one of the best baseball players that I've seen in my lifetime. With that said, I appreciate you for listening to all 13 minutes of this episode of The Elite. If you ever get a chance, look out for my boy Jose Altuve, currently wearing number 27 for the Houston Astros, rocking out at second base, who right now is a 5'6", 165-pound second baseman at 30 years old, has under his belt, he has an MVP the year that he won the World Series in 2017. He has 6 All-Stars, a Gold Glove, 5 Silver Sluggers, 3 batting titles, an ALCS MVP, all of that within the span of 9 years. That's impressive. To me, I think this dude he might end up at Cooperstown depending on how this whole situation comes about. But no, I think he's gonna be an all-time great. I'm really gonna look back and love Jose Altuve. But if you ever get a chance to watch him, watch a full series and just see how just watch how he hits the ball, watch how he makes contact. Just see how often he makes contact with the baseball. I think if you get a chance to see him, you can see that he has a legitimate argument for being the best hitter in baseball, which out of all the different players that refer to themselves as professional baseball players in every level of the minors and the majors, he has a very strong case for the best hitter in all of baseball. Just take that into consideration. Just take that into perspective. With all that said, peace out.